I go downstairs. My mom isn't in the kitchen. I just find Susie staring with her head cocked over at the garage door. And at this point, I start shaking. I'm like, Mommy? No answer. I open the garage door. It's empty. The garage is closed. No one is home.
Hello and thanks for tuning in to episode 59 of Your Ghost Stories. Some exciting news to tell you. It's been a while since we've had someone on the show, so next week I will be joined by a special guest for an interview style episode, and we'll be chatting all about the cage in St Osoph, Essex. It's allegedly the most haunted house in Essex, and for some reason I feel so drawn to it. It has some fascinating history and stories. Or maybe it is just that luminous yellow paint. If you've never heard of it or seen the place, head over to our Instagram and TikTok and find the Haunted Britain 6 reel. You can find the page everywhere with the tag at yourghoststoriespodcast.
Your Ghost Stories. Your Ghost Stories.
Today we have a super intriguing story from Joelle. And it seems, ladies and gentlemen, the infamous Hat Man is back in town.
Everything that I'm about to tell you are true events that transpired to me and my family from October 2011 until March 2014. So this is the house in question, and we rented it through a rental company. After about a week of us moving in, cleaning up, we get a call from this lady who's actually the original owner of the house, and she asked us, hey, can I please stop by to see it one last time? So of course we didn't think anything of it. We're like, of course, stop by, come see it. So it turns out this lady was very sickly. I don't remember what illness she had, but she was leaving for treatment and the prognosis wasn't looking good. And she was telling us different memories she had with her family in that house. And once we get into my room, it was green and it had this cute little picket fence floral, but it had little bunnies and stuff. And she said, please, if you are going to change anything in this house, do not touch this room. I hand painted this mural with my daughter who passed away. Which at the time we didn't think anything of it. I had no plans of changing it, plus it's a rental. We didn't want to change anything about it. Now once this lady left is when things started to happen. Now everything that I'm about to tell you, as it happened, it continued to happen until we left this house. So at this point, we're about 2 weeks into living here, and I'm coming back home from school. I run up the stairs to the right. There's this office space, and the door was slightly open and the light was on. So I just turned off the light, closed the door, and I go to my mom's room. We talk about our day, and then we're going to walk down the hallway, and we just stop. We stare at each other because I had told her about the light. The door again was open, and the light was on. So at this point, we kind of just walk over, we step into the room. There's nothing in there. We said, oh, how weird. Turn off the light, close the door. Now from here on out, there's little sprinklings of this light is on, this door is randomly open, after you had closed it or turned off that light. Nothing crazy. After that, about a month or two in, I had a little miniature pinscher. Her name was Susie. She would start barking all the way at the bottom level towards the garage. Now, the way the house was laid out is that there was a 2-car garage. You would go in and there was a second living room, go up some steps, kitchen, living room, dining room, and then you would go up the stairs and it was the 4 bedrooms and the bathrooms upstairs. But all of a sudden, Susie would start aggressively going downstairs and barking at the garage door. We didn't pay any mind to this because we thought, oh, maybe there's a lizard or some sort of animal or whatever in the garage. Until one day, my dad started seeing this creepy crawl space in the garage. The door would be open. Now, this happened about twice. Mind you, this is weeks, maybe months apart. So we don't really think anything of it. Maybe it's a raccoon that crawled out of it. I don't know. Until one day, Susie had been barking at this door once or twice a week. And one day, she goes downstairs. Mind you, all the lights are off. She's barking so aggressively at the garage door, just going at it. And all of a sudden, we hear a yelp, and she comes bolting up the stairs, goes all the way up the second set of stairs, and goes into my parents' room under the covers in her bed. At this point, we all look at each other and we're like, what the hell? We check her, she's perfectly fine. And then from here on forth, she still barks, but she would bark from the steps in the kitchen going down into that second living room. She would bark from there. She never went back to the garage door again. Then the next thing that started happening is we would hear just stomping up and down the stairs. And we would be like, what the hell is going on? And a lot of the times it was happening when everyone was in the house. So we were just excusing it as, oh, it's my dad, oh, it's my mom. Or my mom would think it's me, and vice versa. Until one day, it happened to all of us individually when we were by ourselves. So I would hear stomping going up and down the stairs, but I would be home alone. That continued on, and we said, oh, okay, well, I guess there's spirits in the house. Whatever. There's nothing you can do about it. We didn't feel any negative energy or anything, so we, again, paid it no mind. And then, I guess we must have had a little trickster spirit. All of a sudden, things would start missing and then reappearing. So let's say all of a sudden you open the drawer in the kitchen and all of the spoons are gone, and they would be missing for 2 or 3 days, and then you would open it back up and they would just magically reappear. So this happened the whole time we were there. You know, we didn't pay any mind to it. It's innocent, whatever. After the first year is when things started getting progressively more intense, more aggressive. I would be home alone after school in my bed doing homework, either with the door closed or the door open, but I started hearing scratching on my door, just a scratching sound. And, you know, I thought maybe it's Susie trying to get into the room. Until one day, those scratching noises were happening while I was home alone, and the door was closed, and Susie was sitting next to me. You know, I would just wait at that point until my parents got home from work and then get out of my room. Never any scratch marks or claw marks or anything. Soon after that, I started experiencing a lot of seeing shadows in the hallway or feeling like something was watching me while I was taking a shower. And then I talked to my mom about it, and she said she saw the shadows too. My dad eventually started seeing them, and it was always of a man in a suit. He had a top hat and he had a suitcase, and you would only ever see his shadow in the top hallway, or you would see his shadow while you were taking a shower, and you would open the curtain and there would be nothing there. And that was the absolute worst, just feeling and knowing you were being watched. Then one day, again, I'm by myself, my parents still aren't home from work, and I'm upstairs in my room with Susie, and mind you, the garage is directly under, so whenever someone comes home, you can kind of feel a slight shake and hear the garage door open and close very clearly. So at this point, you know, Susie hears the garage door open. She goes downstairs all excited to say hi to my parents or whoever it is coming home. I'm still doing homework, so I'm not focused too much on it. And I literally hear the garage door open. I hear my mom with ruffled bags, and she's like, Joannie, come down here. Help me with the groceries. I'm like, okay. I go downstairs. My mom isn't in the kitchen. I just find Susie staring with her head a little cocked over at the garage door. And at this point, I start shaking. I'm like, Mommy? No answer. I open the garage door. It's empty. The garage is closed. No one is home. At this point, I bolt it upstairs, lock myself in my room, and I do not come out of my room until my parents come home. After this occurs once or twice more, and then after that I completely ignore it until my mom physically comes into my room and says, hey, help me with the groceries, because that freaked me out and I'm not trying to mess with anything like that. Not for me. And then one day, all of us are home. I'm in my room, my mom's in her room, my dad's downstairs in the living room watching TV, and all of a sudden, all of the lights start flickering on and off. All of the hallway coat jackets, all of the closets open up and stuff just starts getting thrown out of it. Now this is the closet you could see directly in front of the living room that my dad saw just rip open, and just everything was closing out. What the fuck? At this point, heavy, intense, dark energy was flowing through, and a few days later we get a call from the rental agency letting us know that the lady who owned the house passed away that night. I'm literally getting goosebumps. And then after this, right here in that door, my mom had a little half curtain. After that day, there was this big dark shadow of a man just standing in front of the door. At first, I thought maybe it was just my reflection or something, but all of us saw it. And one day, out of curiosity, we were like, what is that? Maybe it's a trick of the mind. So all three of us opened the door, no shadow, close it, full shadow figure of a tall, big man just standing in front of the door. Now this shadow, it did nothing to us. It didn't feel any negative presence of it, but it was there until the day we left that house. Like I said, after we found out the homeowner had passed away, a lot of the activities started ramping up. It was almost every single day, and at this point it started getting more aggressive, but it was definitely more towards me. I was the one experiencing the most. My parents saw a few things, but I was experiencing a lot of the hostility. So after that happened, I started having very vivid nightmares. They felt very real, very harmful, and every single time I had them, these were weekly, multiple times a week, I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and I started experiencing sounds and feeling things in my room after that night. And what I mean by that is waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, the room is pitch black, and I would hear just, mind you, I had carpet in my room, and I would literally hear dragging feet stomps in my room, starting from my door that was closed all the way to where it would get to the head of my bed, and I could just feel a presence there, and I would just hide under the covers. I didn't want to look at it. I would pray and hope that whatever it was would go away. And after that occurred several times where I would hear that dragging just sound walking towards me. Eventually it got into my bed. Whatever it was, I literally felt the weight of it lay next to me and into my bed. And again, I would just pray and hope that it would be over. Sorry to get emotional or my voice gets shaky. It's just that was a moment in time that I was just so scared, and I feared for what would happen to me at the time. And it happened a couple times where whatever that was would get into my bed, and I would just pray until one time it rolled over onto me, and I just felt an immense pressure on my chest, just squeezing and literally indenting me into the bed, and I could not breathe. So then that happened a few times, and I would just scream, and my parents would run into my room, and the moment they did, whatever it was would just leave. Like, the weight would just be lifted from my chest, and I noticed that whatever it was only ever happened in my room, and if I had any company over, nothing would ever happen. So I was either always at one of my friends' house sleeping over because I did not want to sleep in my room, or I would have them sleeping over at my house, and then nothing would ever happen. And then I remember one time I had my girlfriend over. My parents were upstairs, and I was washing dishes while she was behind me just hanging out, and I had my hair in a claw clip. So I was just washing dishes, we were talking, and all of a sudden I feel hands behind me on my claw clip, and it just pushes my head down. And I was like, girl, quit playing. And she just looked so scared. And she said, that wasn't me. And I looked at her, I said, what do you mean it wasn't you? She said, that wasn't me. Whatever pushed you just now was not me. And I could see the genuine fear in her eyes. And I turned off the dishes, we ran upstairs, and we went into our room. And we kind of laugh about it now, but it was legitimate. Whatever it was, I felt hands and it pushed my head down. Afterwards, we had an instance where my dad was helping out one of his soldiers who was going through a divorce. So he came to stay at our house until he got his stuff gathered and situated during that time. He was at our house for 2 days before he told my dad, I cannot stay at your house anymore. He said, I might sound crazy, but ever since I was little, I see spirits. And he said, this house has a lot of spirits. The majority are good, but there's a few that are very malicious. And the only reason nothing bad has happened to you guys is because those good spirits are fending them off, but they're getting weak. You guys need to leave. So at that point, he just confirmed all of the suspicions we had. And like I said, the energy was getting a lot darker, a lot heavier, a lot more hostile. After he left, I had this one very vivid dream that I remember to this day. I woke up in my dream down the street. So I was walking, kind of jogging back to my house. Everything was dark. Everything was deathly still. Not a single cricket, bird, nothing. It's midnight. Moon was out. I run into my house and there's candles lit everywhere, just like if it was a ceremony. And then I see what I can only describe as a stereotypical demon that you see, the hooves, the red skin, the horns. And he said, I've been waiting for you. And I just bolt upstairs. He chases me and he grabs me in my room and he grabs me by the neck and he stares at me. And he just says, I finally got you. And I wake up, I can't breathe. I have a panic attack. Again, it's 2 or 3 in the morning. I tell my parents about it. So at this point, my mom is dead set on getting the house cleansed, getting some holy water. But before that happens, they're out of the house. I'm in the house alone again. And I have my room door shut at this point. I don't want anything entering my room. I have my dog, and all of a sudden I hear that scratching again, except it's very persistent, it's very intense, and I just yell at it. I say, leave me alone, leave me alone. And the doorknob starts rattling and the door just bursts open. I get up, I shut the door, lock it, and then all of a sudden the scratching stops, the door handle stops. I've shut the door at this point, and we have one of these. This isn't the one from the house, but it was an old metal ceiling fan like this. And all I hear is this big metal crashing sound. It sounds like a car crash. And at this point, I'm trembling. I call my parents and I said, can you please come home? At this point, my parents come home, and when I finally get out of my room, speaking with my parents on the phone, and I know they've come home, and it's not spirits mimicking them or anything like that, I come out of my room, and we look at that ceiling fan, and it is fully dented in. Whatever it was, bashed it in with one punch or throw, whatever it did. And at that point, we had the holy water, we fully cleansed the house, and everything died down. I didn't have the vivid nightmares anymore. Nothing was bothering me in bed or doing anything like that anymore. The only thing that was still there was, I guess, the little trickster spirit moving stuff around or hiding stuff, the stomping up the steps, and the shadow figure up front. After we fully cleansed the house and had someone come in and properly cleanse it using holy water everywhere and making sure to basically cleanse every couple of days, we didn't have any issues for the last few months of being there, and then we left March 2014. My dad got orders. He went to Texas. I was already in college, so I got an apartment in a different area in that town, and by far, that is the absolute worst experience I've ever had with anything paranormal.
Your ghost stories. Your ghost stories.
A huge thanks to Joelle for sharing her story. If you have a story you'd like to share, please reach out to me via email at yourghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com or by visiting the website and sending a message on there at yourghoststoriespodcast.com. Sleep tight.